Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode. Mark and Melissa
Hey, I'm here.
DeJesus are in the house. We are going to have some conversations continuing on this journey that we're heading on. Many multi-series, lots of different aspects, many different ways we're gonna look at this. The healing and freedom journey when it comes to healing from family brokenness, which is a part of everyone's journey because everyone comes from many different strands of brokenness. We all have broken experiences. We're broken people, all learning to heal and grow, mature, and let God do a work in our hearts in those areas. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look into, so a lot of this is going to come out of our journey and what we've learned. We're going to look at healing of family wounds and also look at what not to do. And a lot of this, honestly, is going to come out of our own experience.
Yes.
And also in people that we've helped over the years. And we've had a lot of great things that we've learned. And we're also going to share with you some of the things that we've either done or seen that's just not helpful. And I think our discussion today could be helpful for just giving some relief to where you are, because there's some things we all do. I think we do, and it can be compulsive in our healing journey because you're discovering some things and you're wanting your family to experience that, or lots of other things that you want to do to try to expand healing, and it backfires on you. So where do we begin in this? Do you want to dive right in, or do you want to kind of give a lead in to this?
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that we all have patterns that we do that come out of our brokenness that we don't realize we do. Right. If you are following us, then you're aware enough to say, wow, I got some stuff going on and I want healing and I want to figure out how to do this better and be a healthier person. So, I love that you're here. But there are a lot of people that just ignore it. And sometimes, naivety can be a gift. But for those of us that are like awake to what is going on, it helps to just understand the patterns because it's shocking, like simple patterns that you don't realize that you do when it comes to.
Yeah, because you're growing up in a system and in a family where it's all you know and it's what you're familiar with.
Right.
And I think it's important to realize we don't really see our family upbringing in the deeper ways. Right. And that's why a lot of times people are like, I didn't realize such and such till I was 40, or I didn't realize such and such till I was 50, or here I am 60. And sometimes it takes a while to see the rut we were in to see what we need to see.
You know what I've always been jealous of? When you watch like biographies on people and they go back and they have all these people they can ask about, oh yeah, so this person grew up like this and their dad, like they have a good overview of like what the person grew up with, the atmosphere, the town. Like I wish, I've been saying this a lot lately, that I had somebody like that was, mature enough and wise enough to where I could say, okay, tell me what you saw.
But honestly, because this is one of the things that I was going to suggest about what's not helpful is a lot of people live in a fantasy picture of their family.
You don't really understand what you grew up in. You don't.
So you ask questions, and people are still kind of living in. We work very hard often as humans to make sure things look good and look presentable, and that can get down into the root system of how we present. There's, we don't get real about the flaws,
right? Or even the simple things of like, hey, what kind of dad did I have? Did you see? Well, he worked hard, and then instantly that statement can make you feel bad because okay, yes, he worked hard, but the truth is, it's more nuanced. He ignored us. He didn't. So it's. That is the hard part about asking somebody too.
Yep,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I wish I had that perfect person.
I agree.
Could be like, hey, let me share with you.
Almost like a tour guide that could kind of give you a tour through the honesty of your family.
Yes, I really wish I had that because I feel like so many people can relate to this. You feel stuck in places of why you do certain things or why you can't. To really have someone give you a clear picture. I'm jealous of people that have kind of had that.
Yeah.
They've had that person in their life that can look at it and give a mature response to what they saw maybe.
Yeah, to know that great grandma Meemaw was like
that's far back, but I
was
mean,
like no, but you know what I'm saying? Like she probably battled the same thing you're battling, but just maybe in a little different form
Right.
at that time.
I like you said Meemaw.
All these
You're not even Southern. I think that's a Southern thing. Meemaw.
grandpa hee-haw or
Oh my goodness.
you know what I mean? It's like it's like looking back where you would like an honest tour. Like I read a book about Abraham Lincoln and his depression.
See what I'm saying? Good example.
So you look in and what it is, it's like pieces of everyone's observations in his life of people who knew him. And Abraham Lincoln in the United States has certain things that he's held in high esteem for. But there's this depression. At the time, it was more called melancholy or melancholy, as the British would say. And
have to throw that in there.
And so anyway, so they'd say, well, yeah, there was a lot of times where he was like kind of slumped over and he would act like this, or this is his sleeping patterns. And it's not to judge. See, this is the thing about healing family wounds. We're afraid to look at the dark aspects, the broken aspects of our family, because we think if we look at it, that means we're being judgmental. So we often go, well, that happened. Yeah, but they didn't have this. And then we kind of excuse it. And it's like, yes, get that. They didn't get those things. They were going through stuff. But in the healing journey, we really need to see it. And I feel like there is a fantasy world that we all have of our families at first. And sometimes we need an awakening to go, okay, there were some broken patterns. It's not about like demonizing my family.
Right.
It's not about like my family was 100% evil.
Some people need that truth, though. I'm not going to lie.
Fair enough.
Some people need that truth.
Fair enough.
Because I got some branches in my family that they all still congregate together, and it's nothing but debaucherous. That's the word for it.
You're right. You're right.
Some people need to see it for what it is. Like, this is straight up the most unhealthy evil, and you got to get out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because sometimes it takes that to thrust you into...
Right, and you think you're, like, being awful by moving on.
No kidding. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I look back at my journey. Nah, that's not bad news. That's good. I look back at my journey and I think there is a picture I had of how I lived and how things went. And then there was a second aspect tied to it of like, I'm good. Everything's good. I'm fine. Yeah, I didn't have that. Well, that's okay. Yeah, there's a real avoidance. It's an uncomfortable thing to like work on healing. And so I think that we have to come to these points where we go, no, this was wrong. This was not healthy. And I think to add to what you're saying, we kind of need those moments, right?
You do need
this is wrong. And I've got to do something about it. And I got to make a decision. And then over time, sometimes we go to ditches.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to kind of, have that to move yourself in a new direction. Yeah. And then you kind of over time, find your
middle ground,
your balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Because there's not a perfect recipe for everybody working through your healing journey. But yeah, I think off the jump, we encounter this too in our, one-on-one work or people that we give coaching or any counsel to. There's a lot of, my family was good. I've got this problem. But my family, we grew up in a good Christian home. Kind of just have like their script.
You know what? Everybody feels bad. Well, I feel bad. I just feel bad. I don't want to. I feel bad. Mm-hmm. Everybody feels bad, right?
Yeah.
I feel bad. I don't want to say anything. I feel bad.
I feel bad. I shouldn't say that. I feel bad.
Stop
I feel bad saying
bad.
this.
They should feel bad for how they treated you.
I like this. This is a good conversation. So it's it reveals our emotional world is driven a lot by guilt.
Yeah.
Because guilt is the language of I feel bad. I feel bad. I feel bad. Jesus was not moved with guilt. He was moved with compassion. There's a big difference.
I don't even know what that feels like.
Because guilt is a loud voice.
Can you imagine not living with guilt?
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about people who do crazy things and they go, I'm not talking about being a psychopath, okay? I'm talking about
Right.
not having guilt.
Sometimes, sometimes people think if you don't live with guilt, you're going to be a sociopath. It's like we're always
Not sociopath. I mean, sociopath, psychopath. You know,
same thing.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
there is a diff.
There's a difference, but we're talking about the lack of empathy.
Yeah.
Psychopath, sociopaths.
I think I know quite a few of those, or I've come across them.
We think that, okay, we're so guilt prone that getting free is going to turn us into. We often think leaving one ditch is going to lead us into another ditch. How about we just maybe not drive in the ditches and we just drive in the road?
Yeah.
And not worry about.
I think people are so used to feeling
guilty,
so unworthy, that it is so abnormal when you start breathing clean air and having self-confidence and self-love to make proper decisions and interact with people that are like, it is so foreign, I think, for the majority of the population.
Right. Very, very true.
We need to start turning that tide that there are actually other people to interact with that want that same kind of, because that's the thing, right? We all want to find that community.
Jesus lived very powerfully in his example of not living in guilt. Like even when I used to preach on this, and it make people uncomfortable because Jesus is teaching, and they bring over and go, "Hey, Jesus, your mother's here."
Remember I preached on that one time in church. I preached about this, and because I loved it. I was like, I want to feel like this.
And he's like, "That's not my mother. This is my mother, brother, sister, you know." Mm-hmm. And it's like, what? Like, all the people that have like guilt over their mother relationship, or, you know, dysfunctional mother relationships. Like, what are you doing? This is wrong. And he was recognizing that something that's considered nice was actually interfering with what God was doing in the moment.
So powerful.
When you're
at that level, that's Yoda stuff right there. That's some serious, like,
yeah.
I don't mean to make.
We need to.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody? Don't write me a note about Yoda. And, you know. It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's a jokey joke. The guilt thing is, it's a tricky one to get free from, because it plays on certain things, and we don't know how to live any other way, and then we think God's just using guilt on us, and if you find the language, I feel bad. I try to give little handles of detection. You want to detect toxic guilt in your life. I feel bad. Well, I feel bad. I said, because I feel bad. I feel bad. And if you find yourself just like, start to pull back from that voice a bit, to get into more sobriety of seeing things, because the guilt distracts you from what you need to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're raised by a narcissist, like, well, but I feel bad. So then you kind of go over here, and it's like, no, you need to see it. You need to see it in love. Love leads you in sobriety to see it for what it is, and to allow your heart to work through what needs to be worked through. But guilt, takes us over.
Well, you know what guilt does too is guilt, I feel like, for me anyway, paired up with, I would get this like addict burst, which is really in a lot of ways like a projection thing that I would do with my family. So I would feel bad, and then I would get this burst of like, oh no, I'm gonna interact with them. It's gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna share with them, you know, because I see their potential. So I feel bad. So like I see their potential in this guilt. I feel bad. I see that potential. And because I want it, now I'm projecting. I know that because I'm their kid or their whatever, they want what I want. You're not actively thinking that, but this is what happens. So the guilt comes, and then the enemy is really good at this, and then the projection comes of you know what, they want what I want. If I just interact with them today, and I'm like super nice, and I show them even the book I'm reading or this, I see their potential. So I just got to stay in this game because I feel bad.
That's major. That's probably
the story of my life.
If we were to summarize what is not helpful, that's probably one of the biggest ones. We start to get a revelation, and then we want to go share it.
We got to feel better,
and we want to go, hey, here's things I've learned.
Too.
Hey, here's things that we'll get to that in a second. Here are things I've learned, or here are things, there's brokenness you caused in my life, and I need to bring it to you. And there, you don't have that level playing field. People have to show that they are capable of living in that dimension with you, that dimension of heart healing. And a lot of times there's a couple rounds of this we go through. I'll walk through some of them. One is kind of like it's like the conference kind of thing. You ever go to like a really good conference and you get touched by it and it's amazing, and you come home and you share it with other people and they give you this weird stare?
Yeah.
Why? Because they weren't there and they're not experiencing it, but you're so excited. You're like, why wouldn't people want this? Boy, did I have that. Like, I even launched a whole new ministry based on that kind of mindset. Why wouldn't the world want heart healing and want mental health and have families that are whole? Why wouldn't we want this? And boy, did I get a slap in the face from reality of what's out there. So there's that aspect. Then there's the aspect of you start learning about the Father's love. And then you want to go to your dad and tell him that. And tell them what you're learning. And it's like, it can go all kinds of sideways.
A lot of people
and
do this. Yeah, a lot.
Then there's like...
Because here's the thing. If you could go talk to your parents about this stuff freely, you wouldn't be where you are today. If you had parents like that...
Good point.
You wouldn't be as broken as you are. I'm just putting it straight, okay? Because you would have had a whole different childhood if they're the kind of parents you can talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, and what drives this is a rejection mindset.
Yeah.
Rejection says, I'm going to have a conversation about this. I'm going to open this up so that then they can be a healing vessel. Here's another phase of this that we're changing and growing. So then you go connect with family and you forget they're still where they are. Yeah. So there's this like hypnosis we fall into that we're growing, so we see them differently, right? And it's almost like we think they're open to the change because we've been open to the change. So then when we want to have a conversation with them about it, nope, they're still here. And you get hit with the reality of they're still in their denial. They're still in their defensiveness. So if I was to summarize this, when it comes to family, and I'm not talking about kids under their parents. I'm talking about adult. You're an adult now. You know, when we go to family, you have to see that there is a level playing field for true healthy interaction, being reasonable with each other, and being able to take humble responsibility. Until that's really shown, I advise guard the pearls.
Yeah, and we are so desperate, those of us that want healing, that we'll take, oh my gosh, they smiled at me. We're good and I'm going to go for it.
Right.
And I'm only speaking from experience.
Yeah.
They smiled and they asked, how you doing? And I took that door and I walked, and they were like, oh, I got to get out of here and get more food or whatever.
Well said. And
we get so desperate, right?
Yeah.
We're so desperate for connection that we take any little breadcrumb. And it again reveals our worth and our, rejection issues of we'll take a breadcrumb of a smile. Hey, how's it going? To go, good, vomit on them everything that's going on or try to lead them to where you are.
Right. I found that I have a teaching gift that works through me, and in this kind of setting, it works against me.
Right.
When it's fueled out of brokenness, because I believe if I can just explain to them,
right, if they could just hear you out, it would be amazing.
This will all be just fine.
Right.
Boy, did I have to, I still have to heal through that understanding, because sometimes the brokenness comes to the surface right in front of you, that your family's manifesting, and you feel this need. I got to address it. And there it is. And I've had to learn to go, oh, there it is. I notice it. And I'm being all dramatic with my visuals. I notice it, but we have to learn how to see our family's brokenness, almost like a movie we're watching.
Yeah.
And you and I even say this thing.
Yeah.
You go, I jumped into the movie.
Yep.
I went into the movie.
Yep.
I was supposed to watch it, and then I jumped in it.
I thought I could make the movie better. I thought I could steer this plot. Yeah.
Right. I felt like I could make the orchestration better. I could act. I could be in it.
Because I know.
Yes, because I've got something.
I have truth. They don't.
Yes. And this is another aspect why leaving father or mother is an important thing, because you leave under their covering. You got to give them over to God. And you have to realize that someone else is going to have to be a vessel to help them. And that's hard for people to understand. They're like, no, because God will make a way. God will make a way when there seems to be no end. And he's going to use me as a superhero to save my family. Right?
Yeah,
and it's like,
that cape is strong.
It's like Jesus himself was looking at Nazareth and being like,
right.
Prophet's not even welcome in his own hometown. So take a lesson from that, because they're going to look at you and go, you think you are with your little inner healing book and you're exposing the rejection mindset that you're sending to me.
Right.
Because that we do. This is Mark DeJesus video. You send it over, right? And this book, send it to them, or this teaching, or you need to go.
We love that you do that.
We all go through rounds of that. So don't beat yourself up if you've done it, because everything we've listed here, we've experienced
right
in our own life.
Ain't that the truth?
What else do you find that you've done? You'd add to the list of, this is not helpful.
I love to be passive aggressive. I'm not going to lie.
So share that.
Like
what does that look like?
It's part of my personality. I'm joking.
Well, what is it? Give an example.
Okay. We're all sitting at the table eating and we're talking about stuff and, making a comment of like, well, yeah, if I had that as a kid, well, if you had done this when I was a kid, oh, that's, and you think you're like, you do it as you're funny.
Right. It is funny.
It is funny.
It is funny, but you do realize, me
and my sister think it's hilarious.
This is
I don't
coming
think
out
my
of
parents think it's funny, but we think it's funny.
Well,
but it's like a jab. It's a jab. It's a dig.
It is passive aggressive, and it is sometimes when you navigate, sometimes finding humor can help you though to watch the movie so that you don't get lost in it.
That is true.
I hope everybody understands what we're saying.
Sometimes it's a coping mechanism.
Right. When we say watch the movie.
Yeah.
Did I explain that?
I don't think you did good, but do it again.
Well,
while you're explaining, can I clean my glasses?
You had to clean mine too.
Sorry.
The brokenness we have in our family triggers us. So it doesn't take much. You're around your dad, he says one thing, boom, it sends you, right? Your mother says something, this, your brothers, this, it just sends you down. Like they have certain sentences, certain mannerisms. They look at you, don't look at you. They ignore you. They overtalk you. They say these things that hit these broken places that send you down dysfunctional pathways for yourself. Maybe it causes anxiety. You obsess. You try to convince them. You argue back. The healing journey involves learning how to practice, because you see family members. There's certain things you can't necessarily avoid. I know some people have to do like a no talk block.
Right.
They just have to for their journey.
Right.
That's understandable. But a lot of people are like, family is trying to be somewhat reasonable, but they're not. I'm realizing they're not with me in my journey, and I have to understand how to interact with people. And so the ideal place is being able to see the brokenness as though you're watching a movie. When you watch a movie, you see it for what it is. You might even
feel it.
You might even feel it, but it's not you. It's not what you're going through. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? In the sense of like you're watching it. But what happens is a lot of times we get sucked into the movie. We're wrapped up in our own emotions in it, and the movie being what's taking place in front of you.
Right.
So this has been a very helpful practice to me of like the movie practice. I am watching this. This is not something I have to fix. That's helpful for me. I don't have to fix this. That's round.
You're good at reminding me of that.
That's round one.
Yeah.
Round two is if I'm feeling uncomfortable, it's okay. Just watch the movie. Let it pass on by. This uncomfortable scene will pass. Right. Eventually Dorothy wakes up and she's not in Oz, and we go, oh, okay.
Right.
I don't know why. Speaking of, I don't know why they let me watch Wizard of Oz when I was a kid.
So
That
creepy.
movie's frightening.
So creepy.
I
don't even like to watch it as an adult, to be honest.
No. And at the end, when she woke up, I was like, oh,
Yeah. Then I felt like the real life people who were like like they were even creepy to me in real life. I don't know.
Very true.
The whole thing was weird.
Very true.
But
So going back to the passive aggressive humor, I really try to put those kind of things in perspective, because we could say, yes, that's fueled in anger. It could be bitterness rising up. Yeah. But there's also an aspect too, where like you're finding your way sometimes through humor to just lighten your perspective of this, because we get super serious about it. And because we're dealing with pain, we're dealing with, and sometimes you got to lighten it in your heart so that you don't like get weighed down with all the things that, for me, I felt like I needed to call it out. I felt like I needed to address it. I feel like I need to speak to it.
Well, even too, if you don't do any of those things and you sit silent, but it's affecting you,
Totally.
You leave and you go, why do I feel like I could sleep for 2 days?
Right. Exhausted.
So you were still emotionally involved. Not watching the movie and not being part of it it's a real practice of not wiping yourself out.
Right.
That's for me, that's the basic terminology. You could say it maybe more eloquently. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't need to get all involved in this and wipe myself out.
You and I learned to say, like, so what happened? Well, I went in the movie.
Right.
I went in the movie, and it took me a while to get out of it.
And then you and I can joke and yeah.
You know, to forgive ourselves, because
Right.
we learn, and we
Take that pressure off.
we've all had really bad moments. Both of us have had really bad moments, and we've had to learn. I think for me, and maybe this will help many people, because we're breaking out of codependency. We're all breaking out of like our ties to certain dysfunctional patterns. I've had to realize I don't have to fix this, and I don't have to be responsible for what I'm seeing here. And
That's a great way to say it. That's a really perfect way. Yeah, you're not responsible for it.
Yeah, in a lot of my life, I sit down with people and help them. So I have to actually, when I'm around family or around people where I know this stuff could kick up, I have to like intentionally tune, like, just be yourself. It's all right. Because then that like, I got to say something, or I got to do something, wants to rise back up. And there's good things about that. Like, kind of like, I have solutions. I want to call this out. There's good aspects. It's not like that's bad, but that has to be used in the right setting. And I've used that in settings where I realized, Jesus said, don't throw your pearls before swine. It means not calling your family swine. It just means you have something precious and just treasure it. Don't just throw it out around, because a lot of times when we're going through healing, we want so badly to have connection with somebody to understand. So the first person who seems close enough to wanting to hear, we vomit it out. And sometimes we have to just wait. And maybe it's just a counselor, maybe a safe person who's shown themselves to be trustworthy. And then we kind of open that up. Because otherwise, in these actions we fall into, you work against the healing that you're going through.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That's good, babe.
I think we want to try to convince people of what we need. I think some things I've looked at is that people will do is, I've seen patterns where people will, it's one thing to have anger and bitterness issues. We all have those things we have to work through, but we hold on to it and we justify it. We make it an impenetrable thing. And here's what I noticed. I noticed that there are a lot of people that would say, when we dug down, I don't want to forgive, because if I forgive, that means I need to be in their life again, or that what they did was okay. Or I even know of people that struggled with like abusive relationships or even marriages. If I truly forgive that person in my heart, then I'm going to have to get back together with them.
Right.
And they're a dangerous, toxic person. And I had to bring some clarity to that. Many times it brought a lot of relief. Like, no, forgiveness has nothing to do with that.
Right.
And when you forgive people, there's some advice people give that's like, you got to always go to them. When it comes to your parents, like, work that out with somebody else, because that can be very dangerous for you to go to them and bring up stuff and forgive it, to them, actually say it to them. I don't know that I find that to be very
and
effective.
let's be honest. You're doing it because you want them to say something back to you. There's never a good intention with it.
It's the rejection.
It totally
it's the rejection
is.
lob
Right.
of the pitch.
I've
I'm going to throw this.
forgiven you for abusing me. You want to hear them say, "I'm sorry, I abused you." It's not gonna happen.
Correct. Right. So, there's a couple of questions that might relate to some of this that we'll kind of look at this subject, and then we'll throw in some questions. If you want to submit your own, you can too. markdejesus.com/questions. My mind went blank for a second there. I think it's /questions or something like that. And you can submit questions. Here's one. What happens when my parent, in my case, my father, who had alcohol addiction and obvious personal brokenness from his upbringing, has passed on? I believe he has been made whole in heaven, and this belief has given me the ability to forgive many things, but I know I still have trauma from his addiction. That has caused many issues in my adult life. How do I heal when he isn't physically here? Thank you so much. God bless you guys. God bless you too. Well, this actually ties into what I was just saying. We don't need to go to a person. We don't need to go to the perpetrator in order for us to find healing. And why do I say that? Because that's a very binding thing, because here's a great example. What if the person's dead? What if the person cannot be reasoned with? And now you're being pushed to have to interact with a person who is very volatile, very dangerous. So I think you could, I don't mean to make light of this, but now that he's passed away, I think it can give a sense of like, now I can heal in a whole different way.
Right, because you're not bumping up against it all the time. And even if the person, even if your father, got free of addiction, that stuff is all still there, and you're still, it's still between you when you're interacting.
Yeah.
And I would have thought the person would maybe have, if there had been an openness to it, maybe could have said, hey, maybe there was. It doesn't seem to me that there was an openness. And in a way, now there is, again, not to make light, there is a freedom because you're not interacting in a lot of ways with that junk anymore in his life, that you can be free to maybe move into the next level of healing.
Yeah. Healing does not involve
doing it with the person at all.
The other person being on page with you. That's not, that's not what has to happen for you to heal. And a lot of times it's actually the opposite. You've got to go find your way and heal because you're renewing the generations, and you're wanting God to bring about new patterns, that you're leaving, some of the sinful, dysfunctional patterns of your generation. But I think I always have to bring this home. When you have a parent that's an addict, it brings about a whirlwind of struggles. And that's why I do appreciate what a lot of recovery groups are teaching and doing, because it's so needed. And I think everybody could benefit. I think everybody can benefit from teaching on codependency. Everybody could benefit from teaching on addictions. Everybody could benefit about working through the deeper issues of how, because addictions are in a lot of families.
Right.
If it's not alcoholism or drugs, it's sex addiction, it's workaholism, it's church service addiction. Ooh, Mark, you said that. Yes, I did.
Yeah,
in the
it's a
same
problem.
line as all
those things.
Because they're all avoidant behaviors, and they create neglect in the home. They create an absence of love. They create confusion, all these things. And so, so I think to this person who's asking, growing up with an alcoholic creates a lot of problems to your mental health.
100%. It's very intense.
Yeah. And I say that not as like a doomsday thing. I'd say it as like, it's all right. It's all right. And we've all got, when I look at what people are working through in their recovery, I'm like, there's not one person I look at that I go, yeah, we don't all have some of that.
True.
In our life and our journey. Another question is about abusive father. I was wondering how the dynamics of how children perceive their own worth and value when there is verbal and occasionally physical abuse from the father. And are there common ways this abuse may manifest in the son and daughter's lives as they grow up? Well, I think that, the abuse comes in many different forms. There's There's certainly physical abuse. There's verbal abuse. There's emotional abuse. There's like a spiritual abuse of how faith is presented. There's also the abuse of neglect, which is the absence of
that's the pandemic of our lifetime is neglect.
Yeah, that gets into the things that like called complex trauma, which is neglect from caregivers when they should have been present. And so you say how the dynamics of how children perceive their own worth and value, when there's verbal and physical abuse, value and worth is destroyed.
Right. So then it's the Pandora's box of you pick addiction.
Yeah. So follow the trail of what you battle. It leads back to how you're loved, how you find value and worth, how you see yourself.
What identity were you given?
Yeah. And in this case, not given, and a counterfeit has hit your life. And so are there common ways this abuse may manifest? It's like you said, kind of a Pandora's box. It can go in a lot of different directions. It can be looking for love in all the wrong places. It can be certainly performance-driven living, very perfectionistic. It can also go into a whole different pattern of being lethargic and not having any motivation, not doing anything, not being, both can be rooted in the same thing. So I think that whatever you battle, recognize that abuse had a lot to do with it. Had a lot to do with, because when we're in an abusive environment, we're just hoping, we're just surviving. And so that survival mechanism follows you and you live out of that. And now we're grown adults still living out of that in our lives. They just have like grown up packaged versions of it.
Yeah. Well said.
We'll do one more here.
Okay.
And then we're going to get into probably, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, get into like some father healing, mother healing.
Woohoo.
Maybe in some brother sister healing episodes.
Hey now.
We'll get into some more things. So feel free to send in your questions because we may take them and just like put them into episodes.
Yeah.
And stay tuned. I was raised by an emotional, absent single mother. Okay, so that one statement says a lot right there. Because single mom, so dad's out of the picture for whatever reason. And there was no encouragement or redirecting whatsoever. I didn't realize this absence affected me until I became a mother myself. This is a very common thing.
Yeah.
We get married or children come into our life. And now it's like, in some ways, we get an opportunity to look at a mirror because we go, whoa, we start to see stuff coming up.
Absolutely.
In our children that we recognize in ourselves. Although I am nurturing and uplifting to my children, I find myself feeling like a fraud a lot. Maybe it's because I didn't get what I give to my children growing up. Yeah, I understand that feeling. I also second guess what I'm supposed to share with my children that shows them who I am, and I second guess my parenting, period. That's very understandable.
I, first of all, commend this woman, for how she is expressing and articulating this question. I think so many people can relate to this. I can. Yeah,
I can relate to it too. There's a lot of things that I look at and I want to second guess. I find areas where fear wants to get into my parenting. I find where
when you have any kind of neglect as a child, whether it's a single mother neglect, father neglect, one leaves, anything, I think that most people can relate to second guess. That is so great.
Because that's the absence. It's the absence of a father's equipping and absence of the mother's nurturing.
Right.
Because that's what it does. It's kind of like, here's how we deal with emotions. Here's how we deal with stuff. Here's how, you had a bad day with this. Here's how you deal with it. And so we're now parents referencing nothing. Nothing. What are we pulling from?
Right. What were you equipped with? Nothing. You survived. So now go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. You cut me off. Me, you.
No, but here you are going, okay, now you raise some little people and make them adults. But you were given nothing, so have fun. And you're going,
Yep.
Then when you start to, I know I've experienced with this for myself, you start to get healthy and well, and there's almost a part of you that reverts back to being a teenager because you're like, wait a second, I didn't know how to do this then either. And you have all these parts of your personality that were never really tapped into once you experience love and God, you understand God's love for you. And what does it mean to be a kid again? Oh, wow, wait, I never was a kid when I was a kid. And can I do that now that I'm I even said to him before we started this, I love this. I love this question that this mom is bringing out. I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot to relate to here.
A lot.
And a lot to respond to. I remember, I've shared this before, but I remember like when we had Max and just like standing over his crib and just crying.
Right.
Because I was so aware of like,
how do you do this?
I'm learning this from scratch. And the cool thing is that God meets us in that. He says he's a father to the fatherless, and most of us are fatherless. Can I just be honest?
Even with a father present in the home, most of us are.
Most of us are just fatherless in so many areas.
Right.
Whether you had a dad or didn't, you're fatherless in the voices of equipping those areas.
Right.
So it's like, you're a part of your car engine blew and you're standing over it and you know nothing about cars, right? And you're like, you're here to use that analogy. You're here as a parent. And it's like, what do I do? So it's understandable, but he meets us. And I think that where I could encourage you is to be kind to yourself in this process. It cannot be understated. Be kind to yourself, because otherwise there's this pressure to have to be this perfect mom and this amazing thing to your children. And that second guessing is like that. We don't allow ourselves to learn. And I think where you said, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to share with my children, I think one of the things that I practice, I encourage us to practice and other parents is I try to just be honest about where I'm off or where I'm not, like just taking responsibility for, like if I'm off and sometimes I'm too hard on myself where I'm apologizing for something and I'm like, you all are like, Dad, relax, don't worry about it. Right. But I'm learning as I'm navigating to like, I'm imperfect and I'm working things out.
Yeah. And I think too, the thing that when you're second guessing yourself, however old your children are, what did you need at that age?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could cry.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's what's needed. We need that. We need that heart connection to go.
I feel like that when I was even reading her question, I feel like within myself and her, like I pictured a woman just like wailing on the floor, crying out to God, who am I?
Yeah.
And it's okay to cry that out and ask those questions and figure that out. And when you're trying to figure out with your own kids, what did you need? I look at my 11-year-old daughter. What did I need at 11 My parents were divorcing for the second time to each other. Our lives were being completely uprooted. I had OCD so bad. What did I need? What did I need in that moment? I think that's a great question.
Right.
When you're, I don't know how to parent. Okay. If you could go back to that time, what would you have said to you? What would you have needed?
Yep. Right. And give that.
Yeah.
And God will meet you in that.
100%.
And I think, for me, the question was just be more present. Don't be so exhausted. Don't be so distracted. Just be there in the moment. Listen, enjoy, take it in.
Right. Because when we grow up with the lack, not being equipped in anything, there's a lot of us that want to overdo it. And sometimes, did you have a parent that just sat with you on the couch and watched a TV show with you? We make it so complicated.
Yep.
And we miss the simple things of just the being there.
It's really good. It's really good. So she's in the second part here.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're all right. Is this an effect from my mom not being there for me growing up on an emotional level? Yes. And
no dad.
And dad. Because father's a big part of this. The reason I feel like I'm a fraud, when parenting my children, it's like an imposter syndrome. And I'd like to, as a brother from another mother, just release you from that you're in process. And it's okay. I think growing up, when I look back, there's an imagery to maintain their authority that parents carried, that like they're flawless,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe behind the scenes when I'm not around or you're not around, they're like, oh yeah, I really messed that up. I don't know. But it's like creates this like, because if I show that I'm parenting something the wrong way, it's going to somehow penetrate the authority I have as a parent. And I just disagree. I think as a parent, I'm under the authority of God's standards and God's work over my heart and life. And so I feel like it's empowering for my kids to see, yeah, dad was off there. Like that was off. And I have to be kind to myself in that process, because otherwise, I many times have, obsessive compulsive held myself to, this perfectionistic standard, and I'm spinning about it. And this is going to ruin my kid's life. And what I'm doing is they're going to, talk about playing a movie. I went in the movie, played it all the way to the end, and my kids are like not serving God. And they're like, oh, because of this moment. But it's like just letting them see dad's on his journey. And I think that's going to help in the long term with maybe things my kids work through or heal through in their life, where I'm like, yeah, I understand that. I could see that. I could see that stage in the journey and what happened there and what we as a family were working through there.
Right.
It makes it, I think that one of the reasons we don't have healing conversations is these issues are so sensitive and we're so protective of it, right? And I feel like if we're kinder to ourselves, we can humble ourselves and go, yeah, I'm not perfect, and I can embrace that. Right. And so that's how we solve the imposter syndrome. We embrace the frailty and weakness of our life. Many people are fighting the imposter syndrome by keeping the veneer stronger.
Totally,
right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right? I'm going to show up in my strength. Right. And we promote this like even in church.
Right.
Come on, somebody. We have this like, I'm a soldier of the Most High. And it's like, yeah, that's cute. Look at you.
Right.
You got your armor all polished and you painted spray paint over all the rust. The rust is going to come through. Right. So instead, and that's the format we try to present here, where it's like, yeah, we're learning as we're going and showing along the way what's been very helpful and being a brother and sister, to y'all in this process. So I think you said, if so, how do I heal from it? And I hope that what we shared today will be a help. You said God has been bringing up some deep, hurtful layers within my heart from the past, and I feel under pressure, but also patient for his restoration. That's it. We want to release the pressure. The pressure of you having to be fixed overnight. There's something wrong with you. No, you're on your journey, and your kids are going to benefit from you just keep walking that journey. They're going to benefit from that, and they'll respect you for that versus trying to be something, our kids see our goofiness anyways.
Oh my gosh. It just made me think of a story. So, in trying to be like the perfect parent with things, sometimes I can overdo it with what I try to catch, like don't do that. Because if I see something that was my own issue, I want to no, don't do that because it's just going to cause pain in the future,
Yep.
Well, Abby was kind of going through a stage of exaggerating, the fish is this big, but the fish is this big, which I did a lot just for attention. Well, her and I were having this conversation because she was telling a story, and I'm like, I know the story didn't happen like that. So I was encouraging her, just don't do that. Well, later on, we went out to eat, and I was telling a story that she had been present for, and I exaggerated the story. And she said, Mom.
She called you on it?
Do you remember when she did that? Did you see? I don't know if you caught it. She goes, Mom, that didn't, you said this. And instead of coming under it and feeling guilty or getting mad, I fist bumped her. I said, you know what, girl?
Right.
You got me.
We've had those moments where she'll call out something that she sees in us, and it's like, yeah, you're right.
But you know what? In that moment, I was like, okay, I've made progress for me. Because this was really, it was really about me.
Yep.
Yes, I need to teach her and all that, blah, blah. But it was really about me, just giving grace to myself and being okay too.
Right.
That she even said it to me in love. And so there was a lot there. But anyways.
I feel like this is very valuable right here where we're sitting. And I think a lot of people, I pray you really take the heart of what we're saying, because it's so helpful to just humble ourselves that like and embrace. We're all obsessed with trying to like fix our flaws and look better and be good Christians, whatever that means.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
know,
like,
I don't know how much you still do this with clients at times, but you know, you and I had a practice for a long time, especially when, you know, we were doing a lot of ministry stuff together, of just having people put their hand on their hearts and, you know, just saying really your book title, you know,
Yeah.
God loves me. I
Yeah.
love myself. I have what it takes to overcome. I'm going to be okay. And connecting to that
Right.
when no one else can give it to you.
Yep.
And you're your best friend sometimes. It's you and God, and you're trying to figure this out and walk this out and walk your healing process out.
Mm-hmm.
And until you can find that safe person to do that with,
Yep.
just even giving yourself that kind of kindness is so important.
I think we solved everyone's problems today, don't you?
Yes.
If this has been a blessing to you, I thank you for being here. You know, we've had a number of things going on. Our son's birthday's today.
He's 14.
14 Max is, so we're gonna go.
I
We're gonna go
love
celebrate
Muffin
that.
Max, yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time. You mean so much to me as my wife and my best friend. But our conversations are just really awesome. This was great.
Thanks.
I felt
babe.
encouraged. Just
I did.
talking
I
with you.
felt like it was great today. I hope that people were blessed by it.
come back again, will you?
I will.
Lord willing, and the creek
Creek don't rise.
That's it. So if this has been a blessing to your life, you can support it by going to markdejesus.com. There's a donate button there. You can do a one-time donation or become a regular supporter and become a partner of the ministry work here. One of the books and resources I would recommend as an add-on recommendation is Exposing the Rejection Mindset. And I think that's been very helpful for us in recognizing that rejection kind of thinking is a monster that wants to be fed, and it can lead us to some dysfunctional patterns in our healing journey. And so check that out and let it be a blessing to your life and your journey. Also, the Heart Healing Journey is a great book to get to kind of lead you on a process of what it looks like and allowing your heart to be awakened to the healing and transformation that's available to your life and to your journey. But feel free to send us questions. And we're going to probably get into some healing father wounds, healing mother wounds, and some stuff like that some more.
Awesome.
And like I said, Lord willing.
And the creek don't rise.
We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, everyone.